Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just watched an interesting video by, I've watched a couple of his videos, the Real Merkaba or something like this. The reason I watched the guy's videos because I met this young man. I've known him for a couple years now, but he rides my bus quite often. I drive different buses, so every now and then we bump into each other. And he uh, he likes to engage in discussions, and I was interested to find out why he feels the way he feels about religion or towards religion in general. And so I went to this guy's videos, and he's anti-religious, period. But the ones I was watching, he was talking about Islam, and when I watch these guys, and there's many people like him, uh, what I find a lot of times is they use a lot of material for their videos that they get from uh, European authors, and many times, most of the time, these people they have a deep hatred of Islam. Okay, um, and that's not to say that uh, there's no validity to some of the things they say. Yes, the Arabs bought and sold slaves, and Islam does not single out black people for slavery. If you go to war, at least you know you got to realize the time periods that they're dealing with. You're dealing with time periods where you know if people went to war, what happened to the prisoners of war? They became slaves. This was, these things were taking place before the Industrial Revolution. You see, they, these people had no prison industrial complex, you know, to lock all these people up, like we do here now in modern times. We have to understand the difference between the societies that we live in now and the societies that they lived in back then. Most of those societies back then were agricultural societies, and they did not, it was pre-industrial revolution. So they did not have prisons in every province of the country, uh, to lock up all these prisoners of war. If they had jails, they probably didn't have space for prisoners of war. So, and this was true all over the planet. It, but what these people like to do is they like to, because they want to attack Islam. They say, well, you see what the Arabs did. Well, guess what? The Africans was doing the same thing. The Europeans were doing the same thing. You know, the people in Asia, they was doing the same thing. They was all doing the same thing. But because we want to attack Islam now, we're going to point out that the Arabs were putting people in slavery. Yes, of course they did. Okay, but so did everybody else. You see, when the Prophet Muhammad, when his companions made the hijrah from Mecca to Ethiopia, um, one of the Arab spokesmen, they sent a spokesman to Ethiopia to talk with the king to get him to kick the Prophet's companions out of Ethiopia and send them back to Arabia. Okay, and his argument to the Ethiopian king were, oh, these people, these are some of our simple people have let this man confuse their minds and things, and they've run to your country to, seek refuge and this, that, the other. Turn them over to me, and I'll take them back. And one of the things he said to the Ethiopian king, okay, was that we have diplomatic relations, our people with your people. If some of your slaves escape and run to our lands, we return them to you. And we want you to send these people back with us. You see? Why? because this was a common way of doing things back at that time. So the fact that he was talking to the Ethiopian king and telling him that, hey, we have diplomatic relations, and our agreement is that if some of your fugitives or slaves or whoever escape to our lands, we will give them back to you. And likewise, we expect you to give these people back to us. You see? So these were things that um, took place all over the world. But because we want to attack Islam, then now we're going to point out that, oh, these Arabs did this, this, and this. And first of all, you got to consider your source, man. You got to consider your source as Europeans. You understand? And the Europeans they were they had a lot of wars with the Muslims. The Crusades, which took place in the Middle East, in the Holy Land, in Palestine, but also the Turks were taking large portions of Europe and ruling. I mean, you people, black people, you got to think. Okay, when someone comes to you with this so-called information, these so-called facts, as he likes to call it, you have to think, what is his objective? What is he trying to achieve? He wants to turn you away from Islam. So all of his facts are geared towards that, all his so-called facts. Okay. What he's not telling you, see, because like I said, he takes most of his information from Europeans. Okay. Now, what he doesn't tell you is that these Europeans have a deep hatred of Islam. Okay. And so many times, 99% of the time, their position is biased. They're not looking at it objectively. They're not, it's not a fair critique. You see, they have a deep hatred of Islam because the Turks, who are Muslims, were kicking their asses in the the southeastern part of Europe. Okay, the Greece used to be ruled by the Turks. You have to understand that the Turks were kicking their asses. The Turks reached all the way to Vienna, Austria, outside the walls, knocking on the door. Okay, and also they are still upset about Spain and southern France, the Moors, from that side. You see, so um, they have a deep hatred of Islam, and they are very rarely do you find an objective European when it comes to Islam. Sometimes you will find one, but they are rare. And these people like the Real Merkaba, they rarely take this into consideration when they're just grabbing these people's information. You see, um, so anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So these people, they have a deep hatred of Islam. They're rarely objective, and so they will take something that every civilization, 1,000 years ago, everybody was doing it, but they want to make Islam look bad. So they'll say, "Oh, the Arabs did this." Okay, so were the Africans. So were the Europeans. So were the East Asians. You know, everybody was doing it. So you have to understand the nature of these societies and the difference between the way they lived then and the way we live now. You can't just take your modern mind or your modern way of understanding things and just apply it on people that was living 1,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like like here in America, we see things quite often as black and white. Black people on one side, they see it one way. White people on another side, they see it another way. But before Europeans came to West Africa, the West Africans, each language group was probably looking at the other one like as if they're completely different people. See, here we're an amalgamation of different African peoples, as well as some admixture from native peoples and a little admixture also from Europeans. So we're all amalgamated here and jumbled up and mixed up. Okay. So, you know, and we have certain experiences that's happened to us here that have made us the way we are. But you got to understand, if you go back to West Africa 1,000 years ago, all this bullshit that we went through here that made us think the way we think and act the way we act doesn't apply to them. Okay. So you can't look back at them with your modern mind. You understand? Growing up in America, living all your life in America, and then, and put your judgments on those people that lived 1,000 years ago in that place. Each one of those groups of Africans probably looked at the other one as if they are a different people. And I guarantee you that there was plenty of times when they fought with each other. You understand? And they wasn't saying, "Oh, that's my black brother." No, that's the enemy, nigga. You, these these niggas, like the real Merkaba, this is what they do. You see, they'll because they think and see things a certain way, they'll go back, project back 1,000 years, and say, "Oh, these people, they were so fucked up. They did this, and this, and this, and this," not understanding that the whole system was like that back then, and everybody was doing it. But because they want to demonize, vil- vilify, or demonize a particular group, they'll take that situation and highlight and say, "Oh yeah, they was doing this. Yeah, they was doing that, but so was everybody else." You see, so that it's very deceptive what these people do. They don't look deeply into things. See, he hasn't looked deeply into Islam, because you'll know that a lot of what he's saying is bullshit. Okay, if you sometimes it's hard to like, I'd have to sit down and take notes and then start breaking down each individual point, specifically where he is going off the rails. You understand, or where his understanding of what he's talking about is flawed, or um, where some of it is just straight up bullshit and false information. But even the so-called facts, you see, these you have to understand those people, their culture, and what was the overall conditions and situations going on then and there, and not put your own modern judgment on it. You see what I'm saying? That's that's why a lot of times I don't like listening to people like this, because they really don't do you any service. They these are things that these discussions, they're more detailed, um, than what they allow for. They'll see something happen. Oh, this guy just killed this guy. Oh, he's the bad guy. There's certain dynamics that was taking place right there that you don't understand. So you don't understand why he killed a guy. You just saw him kill a guy. You see, and you think, oh, he killed him. That was evil. But maybe that guy needed to be killed. But because you're not looking deeply into the situation, aside from the surface of what you think you see, you think you got it all figured out and it's all understood. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there is a connection and a link from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to all the other prophets that were before him. You see, now if you look in different times and different places, people had different languages. People had somewhat, depending on where they were, cultures. Um, but we believe that all of these men got basically the same message from the same God. It doesn't matter if these people call that religion Judaism, or these people call that religion Sabianism, or these people call that religion Christianity, or whatever they call it. Irregardless, the core beliefs and ideas are the same. They come from the same source, which is the creator of the earth and the creator of all men. So these ideas and these concepts that will reveal from this creator, this God, to humanity is the same. In essence, it is the same from the first to the last, being the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Okay? So, yes, there is a distinct link or connection or chain that connects the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to all the prophets, all the way back to our father Adam. This is our belief. So to try to tell us that there's something wrong with the fact that there are connections between Islam and ancient Christianity and ancient Hebrewism or Judaism or whatever you want to call it. We know this. We believe this. We accept this because we believe that God is one and he has sent all of these prophets and messengers to these various men throughout the history of humanity, and that this message in essence was the same from the first to the last. So yes, there is a connection. Yes, there is a link. Yes, there are linguistic connections. If you look at that area of the world where a lot of these things were taking place, all of these languages are related. Okay, they call them Afro-Asiatic languages, not the Persian language, though, of course, because it's of Indo-European origin. But the Syriac, the Aramaic, the Hebrew, the Arabic, even the languages that were spoken in East Africa at that time, all of these languages are part of one language family, which is probably an indication that these people have a blood connection as well. Okay, but these languages are called Afro-Asiatic. Now, the fact that there's going to be similar meanings and things like this from Arabic to Syriac to Aramaic to whatever that was going on in that area, that's obvious. That's going to be the case. So that is not an argument against Islam. That is not an argument against, uh, 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 you know, anything that what that we say. Of course, there's a connection. All of these people are related. You know, um, uh, yeah, he likes to talk about Kufic Arabic. Arabic is Arabic. Kufic is a script, the way that it's written. You know, and like I said, these guys, they it's like you look at a picture, but you only see what is apparent and what is obvious, what's on the surface. But there's a lot going on if you start looking beneath the surface. There's a whole lot going on. There's a school of Arabic called Kufic. Okay, I think I think there's two schools. If I remember right, I have to look it up to check. But I believe there's two schools of thought in Arabic grammar. I believe one is from Basra, if I'm not mistaken, and the other one is from Kufa. Now, Islam and Arabic was here before Basra and Kufa were established as centers of learning in the Islamic world. Okay, but for a simple-minded person would say, you see, they follow the Basrian uh, school of Arabic grammar. Well, Basra came after. They'll say, oh, they follow the Kufic school of Arabic grammar. Kufa was established after. That was a city in Iraq. Both of these are two cities in Iraq, and that was Persian. So really, the Arabic that they talk about being Basrian or Kufic, they really have a lot of Persian influence because those are Persian cities prior to the establishment of Islam. That would be a silly argument because the school is named after that city because the scholars of Arabic that follow those rules of Arabic grammar um, established that school of thought in that city. But Arabic was already spoken. The understanding of Arabic grammar was already here prior, you see. But because the scholars that pushed that school of thought were from that city, the school took on the name of that city. Okay, and the same with Kufi. Okay, it there's it has nothing to do with those cities being a part of the old Persian Empire and that being here before Islam. So the Muslims have borrowed their understanding from these people that were here before Islam. No, 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 no. You have grossly misunderstood. You're looking at something from the outside instead of looking just a little bit deeper and seeing why this school is called the Basrian school and why this school is called the Kufic school. You understand? It's only because the men who followed that school of thought in Arabic grammar lived in that city or they were from that city. Okay? And the same for the other city. Okay, it has absolutely nothing to do with what was going on there prior to the establishment of Islam. Okay, um, but as black people, we have to do, really to be honest, we have to do research, man. Like this guy is very good at quoting Europeans and what they think about Islam, but notice he he's not showing you anything from Islamic scholars and what they said about Islam. He ain't going to know Islamic books of history or books written by Islamic scholars about history and giving you anything. He's only telling you what Europeans think about Islam. You see, he's only he's giving you what they think, and he's forming his own opinions of things that he don't really understand. He hadn't looked deeply enough into Islam to see where his understanding is flawed. You see, so you have to do your own research and don't form your opinions based on someone like this who he brings you everything. He All the information he's bringing you is from the enemy of the person that he's talking about. Well, hold up, that person's got some friends over here too. Let me see what they say, and then I'll compare the two and make a judgment. No, I'm going to tell you about so and so, and I'm only going to tell you what his enemies say about him. Are you really going to get a good idea of this person? He's got friends over here too. Let me talk to them and see what they say, and then I'll compare the two and see what makes more sense. Okay, and that seems to me would be a better way to look at Islam if you're a non-Muslim and you're listening to this garbage. You know, um, the Europeans, they have a deep hatred of Islam. Like I said, you'll find one or two that might be objective, but most of the time it's a deep hatred. Because they was getting their asses kicked for a long time. You know, like they talking about black slaves. Yeah, Arabs had a lot of white slaves too. And you see, they don't talk about that because they're talking to black people and they want to make Islam look a certain way to black people. You see, so they don't tell you, you know, that the Arabs had a lot of white slaves too. Why? Because if you was a prisoner of war, you became a slave. That was what it was. But you got to understand that was the system in the world. So it didn't matter to them, but it didn't matter to the people they was fighting either. You know, it didn't matter to if you was in West Africa or South Africa or East India or Greece or Germany or France or whatever. Prisoners of war became slaves. That's what it was. You know. So anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna end this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.